Let me just say this when it comes to brand building, I think we got to start at language first. I think when we look at brand building and we're only thinking about words like branding, we're thinking about words like content. These are very dry words when we try to look at them from sort of a general scope. And so what I've done is try to do research of how to make these words more relatable and more emotionally charged for me. And part of that process was reading a book. I can't remember the exact name of the book. It's inside my bookcase. But it was a marketing book where one of the producers of a show called Mad Men made this book. And one of the most brilliant things he said was that when you're approaching branding and content, let's change the words entirely. Instead of saying branding, say reputation. Because initially, I mean, pretty much that's what it is. It's what your reputation is. You know, whether it's McDonald's, Coca-Cola, their branding is pretty much just their reputation. What do people generally say about their product or the person representing them if it's a personal brand? So replace branding with reputation and replace content with message. Because when you think about it, that's really just what message do you want to get to your audience? If the message is, I am a voice of authority within this particular space, well, then the message should be somehow filtered into whatever piece of content, I guess, you can put out there. But it's really just your message. What message do you want to share today? So as I'm doing, consultations with producers on a regular basis, what I'm telling them is that, you know, take out the marketing language out of it and just think about what do you want to do? Like, what is exactly the message you want to get across? So my Instagram, my Twitter is just full of nothing but messaging. You know, I'm kind of well versed in terms of the algorithms, but they're always changing. So I really don't try to get obsessed about that. I just try to think of generally what does my audience look like? And as I'm creating a piece of messaging, I'm actually seeing somebody visually. What kind of a hat are they wearing? You know what I mean? Is it somebody who just got started into rapping? You know, and you know, what are they wearing? Are they into name brand? Are they not into name brand? You know, how do they talk? What speed do they talk? Or what are they within their social circle? Are they a leader? Are they somebody that is, you know, looked at as sort of a follower within that team? Or are they somebody who's a contributor to a bigger team? Whatever that profile is, that's how I shape my messaging or my content. And everything from there is just really understanding that people don't buy into products. People buy into people. So with that general mindset, I've pushed that forward 100%. And I grew my YouTube channel in less than 3 years from 900 subscribers to 150,000. And that only came because I'm not when you think about how YouTube is set up, you know, people with the clickbait and sort of like, you know, I guess the PewDiePie approach to a lot of the content, those are the ones that do the best because it's the nature of YouTube, the clickbait, the controversial topics. That's not my get down. So then I had to approach it from a different way. I'm a huge fan of the content of speakers like Les Brown, especially Tony Robbins. And so I went to a few of these events and read so many of these books and consumed them and realized there's a missing piece for music producers online who want to take themselves as a business serious. They want to be professional, but there's a missing piece of content that nobody else are messaging that nobody else is putting out there. So for me, that became sort of my niche, was getting into this place and saying, okay, everybody's talking about how to slide an 808 and how to make your snares have more of clarity, but nobody's talking about what if I don't feel like making a beat today? What about my mental health? Right? What about how I feel about my music? What about insecurity within my music? What about fear of showing my music to other people? Nobody was addressing this. And so because that's sort of my nature, I like to encourage my peers. It made complete and total sense to make a YouTube channel based upon that type of content. Now, it took longer to build, but I built it. And the audience that I build is not there as fair weathered fans. These are loyal supporters to the point now where I'm actually getting to transition and leave YouTube and go to a paid subscription only service. And they're like, look, we're going wherever you're going because nobody else is providing this. So I think that's important, is that you kind of have to always, as you're approaching these social medias and you're approaching how am I going to brand, how am I going to message and deliver content, it's got to always be with an exit plan in mind. in terms of where you're going to send these people to. Because a lot of people make great content. They just don't send the energy anywhere except for that particular platform. And the people with that philosophy, ask them how they feel about MySpace right now. Right? So I think it's important that you always have in your mind, like even when I did YouTube, like I was like, I want to get to 100,000 subscribers, get my plaque, and I'm gone. But that's not what I did. I stayed for another 50,000. And now as the algorithm is changing on YouTube, now as all these things that are out of my control are changing, the person with the pride and independence and ownership within me is saying, okay, my brand or my reputation is strong enough to where people will pay per month for exclusive access to this content that I've been delivering. I have over 1,500 videos on YouTube, and it equates to roughly about 15,000 hours that I've uploaded on the internet, or up to YouTube in particular. So it's always important to have those things in mind as you start to figure out your branding and your content.
I know one thing that people have been asking me. I've answered it, but I'd like you to answer it as well. When I first began, I didn't have a great sense of, hey, this beat is sounding pretty good. Actually, this beat is sounding pretty terrible. This is what it needs. You know, you have to kind of develop that sense of trusting yourself to say, hey, this sounds good. Hey, this doesn't, right?
Right.
I remember going through the phase where I thought everything sounded horrible and then other people would hear it and they'd be, oh, no, that's pretty good. How do you develop that sense?
You develop that sense by, first of all, recognizing what it is that you love. What kind of music do you like? Because you'll get advice from the wrong people and they'll shape you into something that they like, but not necessarily something that you like. And that happened to me, to where I was so eager to get information, so eager to increase my learning curve, that I was getting around people who were very talented at what they did, but it wasn't music that I actually liked. Right. And so when I didn't make that I didn't recognize that until later on. And so that's the best advice I can give, is that as you're trying to kind of decipher, okay, what sounds good, it all sounds bad. Let's just say that in the beginning, it's going to all sound bad. The bigger picture is it doesn't matter. If you enjoy the process, if you're understanding the things that you like about music, like for instance, I'm a huge fan of the Neptunes, of Pharrell and Chad Hugo, and I love their chord progressions. I didn't know anything about music theory, but I learned about seventh chords, or seventh,
major seventh chords from the Black album movie.
Yes. And that was exactly when I said, "Oh, seventh chords."
Yes, me too.
I was like, "What's that?" Maybe I should do some research on that. And to me, it was like, if it felt good to me, maybe my immediate circle of friends and listeners wouldn't feel the same way, but it feels good to me. That means that there's somebody in this worldwide world, this 7 billion people, that are going to say, I like it too, right? And so with keeping that in mind, and really sometimes you got to go into a shell, especially if you know yourself to be very hypersensitive, which I was hypersensitive to feedback, especially in the beginning. We're all kind of in that, to a certain degree, because you don't want to be delusional, but you do have to go in and figure out, first and foremost, what do I even like about music? And then what do I like about what I'm creating through music? So as you're going in, like, I think the wrong approach is to listen to people that tell you that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Until you establish what it is that you like, then you can bring it to them and they can say, that sounds good. Here's how we make it better. And then you can kind of decipher, okay, do I like that approach to mixing my music? Do I like that person's approach to, reformatting my music? Whatever that is for you, you're going to end up making the best decisions inevitably if you go that direction. That's one thing I wish I would have changed in the beginning, because what happened was I got so much feedback from so many people. I got analysis paralysis where I just did nothing at all, because it was like I sat there in front of my DAW and I was like, okay, don't do my hi-hats that way because that's whack. Or don't do my kicks this way because engineers have a problem mixing that. Don't do my arrangements like this because rappers don't like that. When it's not true. It's not true universally for everyone. And so I just had to get to a place where, what music do I love? And how do I get my music to be a representation of that? And then from there, how do I improve this piece of art that I've created? Right? Really, there's a lot of producers in the first 6 months who go to with the empty canvas. They go with an empty canvas in their hands and they walk up to people and say, fix this, please. And it's like, well, there's nothing there for me to fix. It's an empty canvas. But if you have something on that canvas and you show them and it's like, I like that. I wish you would have used more blues on that canvas. And that's kind of the approach that I have when it comes to getting information in the very beginning.
I like that too, because that teaches me a lot about being an instructor. Like, I hope I've approached all of you in that way where it's like, you know, don't rush to call that bad, or don't rush to say, you know, it's a process. And
Right.
and in this, what I've recognized is I've been making beats for 11 years. Doing this course, it's like unfolding those 11 years over a slow course of time. And I remember stuff about my process that I just forgot about. You know what I mean? Somebody asked earlier, they said, what if there's drums in the sample already? And I remember when that was like a big deal for me. And then at some point it just became not a big deal. You know what I mean? You know, little stuff.
Right. And it's so much easier now too, man. Because I just sampled. There's a Brady Bunch sample from the TV show where they were singing, I think I'll take a walk outside now. The summertime's calling my name. I hear you now. And I took my son to SeaWorld, and my brain, like this is what happens. You better make sure that you want this as a music producer, because your brain will never be the same. Okay? Your brain will never be the same. I literally woke up at 3 a.m. I sound crazy. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I was going, like, I went to my studio to kind of shut off the lights in the studio, because it's usually looking like an EDM festival in here. I shut off the lights, and as I'm walking away, I look at my camera and I'm like, I want to see the pictures of my son in video. And as I'm looking at these very colorful and bright photos, I'm like, man, I don't know why this reminds me of that Brady Bunch song. And it started playing in my head. And when I'm trying to shut down my brain to go to sleep, it's starting to play with drums now, my own drums. And I'm like, come on, fam, don't do this to me, man. I gotta go to sleep. Don't do this to me, man. It's like, well, I mean, you could just loop it and maybe add some drums and work on it for just finish in the morning. That never happens. That never happens. So literally, I sat there, and I'm bringing this story back home because of the whole drums and the sample thing. But I sat down, and I was like, okay, Curtis, 30-minute session. Yeah, right. 30-minute session. We're just gonna get this idea out, working on it in the morning. 5 hours later, the beat was done. And so, that being said, that sample has a huge, like, it has like its own drums, but the drums are very clear, and they kind of hit at a certain frequency that are hard to duck. So what I ended up doing, and what I think is the beauty of living in 2019, is that there's plugins like a Kickstart that will basically sidechain compress, do sidechain compression to certain sounds, and wherever that snare is coming in, I had it to where the volume does like a very gentle dip. And when I did that, the sample sounded like it has no snares in it, right? Now, stylistically, that may not be your thing, but the people on my IG were like, yo, this is amazing. How did you sample this? How did you take the drums out? I didn't take anything out. I just added a plugin.
So I'm going to pause on a learning moment. We are talking about technical mixing decisions versus artistic mixing decisions, right? And I love staying on that line. Because we're in the mixing unit right now, right? I showed them how I mixed the beat. I applied Shaperbox for some of the similar reasons, where I was trying to get to a certain frequency of a sample, right? And so I'm glad you brought that up, though. Technical mixing choices versus artistic mixing choices.
Yeah, and it's a hard line to walk sometimes, because, there are certain decisions, like when you look at it, I try to always, and this is something you're going to hear me say time and time again. Everybody in this room knows what a snow globe is, right? Right?
Yeah.
You got quiet. I got scared. I was like, uh-oh, not time for this analogy, Curtis. So a snow globe, you look at a snow globe, you're literally looking at an artist that has put this together that gives you a grand point of view of a world that you're outside of. And it's almost like you're looking down upon it because it's so small. I try to do that with my production process. I try to have a snow globe point of view, in that there are certain decisions that I'm making. Sometimes you can get so deep into, and I'm talking about even in my 15th year doing this, it still happens to me, where you get so much into the technical aspects of production that you forget all you're doing is just manipulating audio. Really, that's all you're doing. The big picture, the snow globe view, we're just manipulating audio, right? And it's a matter of, does that sound good or does it not sound good, right? And only you have your set of ears. and then somebody has their set of ears. But when I take the moment to get away from, okay, does this have enough compression? Does this need to have a soft clipper? All that stuff becomes muscle memory once you understand the bigger picture. What do I want from this music, right? Because in the beginning, there's a tug of war between you and the music in who's controlling what. Because you'll get into a DAW, and today a DAW will start acting a certain way, and Reason will start acting a certain way, and you'll be like, you know what? I guess you're running today, then, Reason. I'm following you. And then it feels like the beat just like it feels like you're putting the beat together, but it's running away from you. And then by the time you finish, you're like, I guess we made a beat, right? So I think it's important that you always find a moment to check yourself and say, okay, am I going too deep into one side? Because the inverse of that is to be so artistic that you just break all rules, and it only sounds good to you. I had that happen when I did a beat critique where a guy came in and he was like, I just got my own style, right? Curtis, I got my own style. And I'm like, says every producer. He's like, I got my own style, just give it a chance. And I'm listening to it, and it was a bunch of like goat sounds and like these pads that were like from a keyboard in 1998 on a Windows 3.0 computer. And it was just like, what is going on here? And I'm trying to like respect it, but it's so artistic that I can't even find the music, the musicality, or the musicianship, I should say, within the actual production. So you can go bad on either way, right? But it's important that you recognize where you're at as you're making decisions with your music.
I got a couple questions. Anybody have anything?
Yeah, any questions from the stuff that I've said so far?
I know what's wrong with it. Mine is blown. If I had just been making beats for a year and I got a chance to meet somebody that's doing it like you do, like I would be like, can't peel back a little bit. Like I can kind of understand the feeling.
It's all good. It's all good. I think because I talk too much. That's what it is. They're like, I mean, if you're just gonna keep talking, I'm gonna question. No, I'm playing. But I do understand what it's like to be in that place, even though it's been so far removed. I know what it feels like because I talk to producers on a regular basis that are just getting started within 6 months, within 1 year, and the biggest hurdle, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is not the conversations, not the teaching on the outside, but it's the conversations on the inside of your brain. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong? So if there's any questions, I mean, I'm telling you, anything that you feel maybe is causing a block for you, maybe you feel like I just need to hear a confirmation of something, I'm here because I definitely know what it feels like. There, especially when I started making beats, there were no classrooms like this. I had no opportunity. I wish if I was in this classroom, say 15 years ago, every one of you would look back at me and like, shut up. Could you stop asking questions? That's just me, because I'm noticing the difference between excitement and enthusiasm. I was so enthusiastic, and that has not left this entire 15 years. So, yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free. There's nothing that I have not heard. Nothing sounds crazy to me.
So I guess, how do you feel about like starting to go out in the process of like making music and then sharing it out in the world? Like just starting
Great question. Because when I first started, I wanted to show everybody everything I was making. Mama, look at this kick I just EQ'd, I think. Right? And I had a buddy of mine that I was recording music with, and we were both artists, and I was the only producer and artist. And so we would do a song, and you know that initial excitement when you put together something and you're like, this is actually not that bad, right? It's not like it's the greatest thing in the world, but it's like, it's not that bad. And it kind of warms you in your heart and your soul. And so I would show him, and I remember, I'd never forget, we had a regimen. We walk home from school, and I would bring my PlayStation memory card, and I would play him music, and he would go in his kitchen, he would go heat up a frozen burrito, and then walk back in the room as I set the PlayStation up in crazy speed and just putting it together. I'm just, oh man, I'm enthusiastic. He walks into the room, and as he's eating his burrito, he's just listening to the beat, and he's like, it sounds cool. It's just real video gamey. And I'm just looking at him like, could you give me more adjectives, please? Or could you provide something else? And a lot of people don't know what to say. And you're gonna get feedback from people who don't know how to describe what they're feeling, but it's all valid in its own way, right? And you want to respect it, but you don't want to internalize it. Even the good compliments, you don't want to internalize those too strongly, because you take those in and somebody tells you, man, like, for a starter, your drums are ridiculous. And then you realize when you get into a room full of producers who've been doing this, or producers who actually do have ridiculous drums, you're like, my drums are not that great. They lied to me, right? And so when it comes to feedback, I had a philosophy of just show it, show it, show it, show it, show it. And I think it gave me a lot of feedback that I wasn't ready for, right? My buddy was from the philosophy of let's perfect it and then put it out there, right? One of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to butcher it, from Abraham Lincoln, is that if you give me a tree to saw down, I'm going to spend the majority of my time sharpening the saw before I actually cut down a tree, right? So that's the mentality that I have. Instead of trying to go and butcher the tree down, I'm trying to sharpen up the saw for as long as I can so that it's a clean slice. And so now, as you're making your beats and you're working on your music, I would just say, continue to sharpen your sword, sharpen your pencil, get whatever you need to do to make it sound even better. Purchase courses, whatever you see online, whoever you respect and you like their videos. That's why YouTube is such a great platform, in that you can see somebody's work, you can see their style of teaching, and you can just sample it and say, is this something that I feel like I would invest money into? And if it's free and you would invest money into that free stuff, then you know for a fact that the products have got to be in a certain type of space with that. So that's what I did. I consumed a lot, but now you have more resources. Udemy, I mean, this classroom itself, like, you have so many resources that are out there that can assist the learning that you're already doing. I would just honestly, rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle. But one of his quotes that I love is that sometimes you got to get ugly and just eat. Get ugly and eat. Everybody wants to show you their beautiful progress, but it's not a beautiful process. Sometimes you have to sit there with it, and when it's really, really ugly, just spend more and more time on it and perfect it, because it's never going to be perfect. I've been 15 years into this. It's never going to be perfect.
That you say that, I'm just thinking about one thing that comes to mind. When I discovered you, I was in a different part of my process.
Okay.
I was a little bit past, I mean, I'm always learning, but I was a little bit past the, you hop online, how do I do this, how do I do that? But I was a little bit past the, I'm trying to make beats and I'm getting into the, I want to be inspired space.
Right.
And I'm really seeing how in the last 5 years, I used to watch Johnny Giuliano a lot. And in the last 5 years, there's been this big divergence between their, people who are really doing this because they want to teach, and then some people just kind of showing off, really inspired, I guess is what I would call it. And so, I'm just thinking about that. And with you jumping into the kind of the paid service, like, it's just weird how niche that is, but how necessary it is how necessary it is for there to be some kind of learning that's available. Because I remember I started in 2007, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking about, like, somebody would say, I made this beat like this, and I would go copy every, I might compose it a different way, but I would copy every style they did throughout all the tracks and everything like that. And, you almost had to, like, dig through stuff to figure out what you wanted to know. Where now it's like, do you need to side chain and reason? Go directly to this video. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about, the changes you've seen from those two eras just over the course of the years?
Yeah, well, when I first got started, the inspiration that you got from producers was sort of in the same line as, like, I know everybody in here has seen an Instagram ad where the guy says, "I'm on a boat," or I'm in front of an ocean. You see this mansion? This is my mansion. How did I get it? Let me tell you. Right? This five-step process and this course that I'm going to give to you. It's a free PDF that's going to upsell you to something else. But that has been sort of like the voice of producers that have, quote unquote, made it financially before I got into the game. And so it did present its sort of motivation, especially when financially you're not doing well. It's great to see somebody like a Superstar O, or like you said, a Johnny Giuliano, that they were on YouTube showing you the fruits of their labor. And it's like, it's one thing to believe that you can make a living at creating music. Then it's another thing to see somebody making like a better living than 90% of the people around you, right? And so that's what that sort of era of inspiration was. In the era that I came in, it was very technical and very focused on just how do I improve my technical ability as a music producer. There wasn't a whole lot of focus on mental health. That's a huge problem because most producers that I know they're I don't want to say they're antisocial, but they're introverts, right? They don't really like going out a whole lot. They like staying in front of the computer. They like the nature of this type of work, which is what attracts them to this in the first place. It's just you, your computer, your music, your interpretation, your expression, and nobody else. And so because of that, there's a lot of things that go on with your brain and your body that I learned from going to these Tony Robbins events that I just never gave it any sort of value to. I'll give you an example. How many of you in this room sit at your phone like this? Right? And I don't know if you can see my back, but you sit at your phone like this. How many of you sit at a laptop like this? What's happening with your body is affecting your brain. Because if you are slumped over, if you just look at me right now, what emotion do you think I would have right now if you looked at me? You walk into a room and I was like this. What emotion would you think? What do you think I'm feeling?
Sad, unconfident.
So that being said, what brain messaging do you think is occurring when you're physically doing it? It starts with the physical, right? Where energy goes, that is having an effect. What is happening in your body is having an effect on your brain. So what I learned was that the very nature of being a music producer is putting your body in a physical state that looks like you're depressed. It's sending messages to your brain about you being depressed. And I don't know if you ever had this happen where you're sitting at your phone and you're not even looking at anything depressing. You're probably just looking at like cats like being cute or something. And all of a sudden you have the most depressing thought come to your brain or the most self-defeating thought come to your brain at your laptop. And it's like, where did that thought even come from? That's your brain processing your physical state and then telling you, look, man, fix something because this is what I interpret based upon how you're sitting. So this is why I wanted to focus on that, because I figured out it's bigger than kicks and snares. It's bigger than I don't know how to mix my beats. It's bigger than all that. It's about what you are doing with your body and how you're interpreting that through your brain. So I wanted to come through with that focus and really talk about things that no other producer was talking about. No other producer was talking about physiology, right? Or the necessity of having a morning regimen. They are now, but when I came into the space, I was, there wasn't many like me. So that was really my motivation. And so it shifted now to where producers are realizing, okay, in order for me to have a successful YouTube channel, I have to do more than just tutorials. I have to make sure that people see me as a human being and realize I still fail. I still have struggles mentally that need to be addressed. But that's sort of my response to that question.
All right. Well, we appreciate you giving us some of your time, Curtis. We do got to get ready to clear out because there's a class coming in behind us. Let's give Curtis a round of applause.
Thank you.
We appreciate you joining us. We'll just offer you the last word.
Okay. Well, I mean, many of you are already on it. I just got to say, I'm enthusiastic about the direction that you're heading. I'm enthusiastic for the voices that you have. You have very powerful voices. I only met you once today, but I can already tell I'm in a room full of powerful voices that have the ability to change the narrative of how people see this. I'm pretty sure that when you first started making music, in comparison to now how you respect the craft and see it, it's night and day. So that being said, you're almost been given a gift and a responsibility to make sure the rest of the world understands how complex this is. And as teachers, as performers, as journalism majors, this is very important because you control the narrative of our society. So thank you.
All right, man. Have a great rest of your day, man. We appreciate you.
So, okay, you have a good one. Peace.